Howdy do y'all, Tables here. New temp league, wasn't really expecting this. 19 new ascendancies. 19 new ascendancies is crazy. So we have a lot to unpack to get ready for this event. I'm going to try and work on 2 to 3 POBs, probably around 2. Definitely 1, and that's the one that I'm showing you in this video. So we are going to go to Temp League pre 326. And this is some of the stuff that we've been working on. But the one that we're going to go over right now is this Herald of Purity Witch. And for those that don't know, you can actually go into POB and type in Prismatic. And it'll show you all the different new ascendancies. And we're going to be running with the Herald, which is right here. So we're getting +3 to level of all Herald skill gems. Herald buff effect, which doesn't really do anything for us. But the 15% fizz dam reduction is massive. Literally, it's huge. It's so nice. And then we're getting +2 to our purities, which puts us at 6. You get 4 base. This gives us +2. Super nice. And then auras are disabled, and you have 200% increased mana reservation efficiency. Insane. Super duper good. This means that we don't need the chest piece that caps our res at 50, and you can just put as many gems as you want to in there. This means we don't have to take presage. And yeah, it just makes everything a lot smoother. Now, the only downside is you can't have aura. That really leaves us with a couple of options. One of those being Tempest Shield, which we are running. And the other also leaves us with Petrified Blood. But I'm not convinced that Petrified Blood is going to be worth using at 5 to 5.5k health. Even with the amount of block that we have, which is 86, 88. Because we are using the unique shield. It's really insane. It's super good. I'm opting to not do that. I don't think that's really the right way to go about it. Let's just hop right into what the build is all about. So for those that don't know, Herald of Purity, you have a 20% chance to summon a Sentinel of Purity when you hit a rare or unique enemy. And you will be guaranteed to summon one if you kill an enemy. And so we're using Stormbrand to kind of proc those hits on rares and uniques. And early game, we're using Stormbrand to help kill white mobs to spawn our purities. And I leveled one up to like Act 8 the other day. And honestly, it was an incredibly smooth leveling experience. I didn't run any auras. It was a breeze. It was a joke. It really was. It wasn't difficult in any way, shape, or form. We honestly got along just fine. And so we linked that to faster casting to be able to proc more. You know, it activates every 0.5 seconds. Cast speed applies to this skill activation frequency. So the more cast speed we have, the more that this activates, i.e. the more hits. You could also do you could do ball lightning of orbiting. You could do ball lightning of static. Both of those are still also really good. But I like Stormbrand. That's just me personally. I'm just a big fan of this skill. It's very easy to use. It's not clunky in any way. And it just makes for a really smooth playstyle. Now, we are going to have a trigger wand. We don't have the trigger on here yet. But we will be having one. And then for that, we have that link to our weapon 1. We have Desecrate at level 1, Flesh Offering, and Tempest Shield. We run Tempest Shield in here as opposed to anything else because this is not able to be triggered. So, yeah, you link these, keep this one. It's separate, little gem slot. And yeah, this is our trigger one setup. Now, this shield says trigger an LE spell on block with a 0.25 second cooldown. I can't really think of anything to do for this build that would really make use of this. I could see this. I could work this build differently and run Triad Grip to convert all the fizz on my minions to whatever element I wanted. And then we could certainly make use of this setup that direction. But I wanted to go like a pure fizz route on this and see how far we can kind of push like a league start setup. Because that's essentially what this is. This stuff is very league startable. None of this gear is that crazy. It's literally life, res, a shield that is not cheap or that is not expensive. These jewels are not going to be super expensive. The clusters, I don't think will be that bad. Honestly, the clusters are not that difficult to roll. You just gotta kind of find. You just kind of gotta roll them until you get it. It really shouldn't be. It really shouldn't be that bad, especially with the large cluster. We just want the one with as least amount of passives as possible, and those are a lot cheaper than the ones that want the more the 12 passives. So for our second weapon, instead of a trigger, right, we're gonna do Immortal Call, cast when damage taken, level 2, so that we can have a level 4 Immortal Call, and then a more duration. And the reason why we're using Immortal Call over Molten Shell is this right here. This is the anoint that we have on our amulet, and we have a 25% chance to gain endurance charge when we block. Obviously, we have lucky block. This is going to be insane. We are always going to be at maximum charges. Like, there's no question. It's going to be super good, and that is just going to bolster our Immortal Call, right? So as soon as we miss a block, we get hit, we're immediately taking less damage, right? So first it has to go through ward, then it has to go through block, then we get hit, then it has to go through Immortal Call, then our ward is already back up, and essentially the cycle continues. So I think we're going to be a lot tankier than I think we're going to be. I was a bit concerned about not having auras, but with all this block, plus the ward hit, plus the Immortal Call with 3 endurance charges, I actually think it's going to be. I actually think it's going to be quite nice. I think it's going to be pretty decent. And as you can see, we do have 90%, almost 90% physical damage reduction. We're very close. When you put the flask on, we in fact do have 90%, so we're really close. Now, we are also going to run Ray Spectre with Meat Shield, Minion Life, and Stone Golem. If you look on the tree, we are really not doing anything for minion defenses. We have a little tiny small wheel here and 3 little points here, and that's all we're doing for a minion survivability, right? So I don't think it's a good idea to run AG on this build. I think the regen from Stone Golem is going to be much more effective for us in the long run. And then we have our lovely Herald of Purity. All this stuff is quality. Gem Cutter's Prisms are not hard to get, but none of this is awakened, and a lot of this can be. And when you start to get to a point where you're getting awakened gems, this whole setup might change a little bit. Like for instance, currently Ruthless is better than Empower 3, but Empower 4 is better than Ruthless, right? So as you progress, you'll have to kind of figure out what are we going to need to change here as our access to better gems, comes our way. But we're going to run minion damage for the eventual awakens for the +1. Currently, we are at 29. The +1 from minion damage will put us at 30. And then we have Brutality, Melee Fizz, Impale, and Ruthless. Impale actually does a lot of damage for this build. Like we're talking 1.5 million DPS just for the Impale, and we're not even at 100%. I think we're at 72% total with the cluster jewel. So I really do recommend that y'all do try to get Rotten Claws. I think it's going to be really important. Currently, Impale Fizz minions hasn't been meta for a very long time. So anything with Rotten Claws is probably not going to be that expensive. And yeah, it should be fairly simple and straightforward to get. I think my personal 4-link is going to be Purity, Minion Damage, Brutality, and Ruthless. And then I'll save Melee Fizz and Impale for when we get to maps. Mainly because we're gonna be lacking in dex as we level, and I just don't want that added trial and challenge of getting dex all the way up. We'll save that for the end game when we get some currency. Then we also decided to take Golem Commander, and I wanted to do this for a very simple reason. since I'm not running AG, I wanted my Stone Golem to be very reliable. So I went ahead and stuck it in with the Meat Shield and the Minion Life. But that means that we can't run Feeding Frenzy unless we have another Golem. You could do one of two things. You can dump this whole wheel and save yourself 4 points that you could put somewhere else, right? You could just wholly put that somewhere else. Because realistically, the buff of Carrying Golem is not a lot. It's not a ton, right? So you could just as well put zombies here if you really wanted to. And that would give you even more of like a kind of a frontline meat shield situation, right? So you don't have to go this. You know, you could dump these, and these can go all sorts of different places. These can go to more survivability, right? There's 2 points here for more damage. You can do here, get some all res and armor. I mean, kind of the world's your oyster. You could go here and get another 30% to couple with this 30, and you'd be 60% reduced crit damage, which will help with one shots. This is the route I'm gonna go because I really like the Carrion Golem. I'm a big fan of it. But you can just as well do zombies. The main thing is we need something to proc Feeding Frenzy, because Feeding Frenzy is a lot of our damage, like a whole lot of our damage. Yeah, we're losing 600k, 700k just without Feeding Frenzy. So it's super, super, super important that this comes online as early as possible. And then we're running Frostblink with the vulnerability, Shield Charge with faster attacks, and then Stormbrand with faster casting. And that is all going to be ran with a Withering Jar. Now, early game, as you're leveling, it is very important to take Spiritual Aid. This, until you get a Withering Jar, I really recommend that everyone run Spiritual Aid. Highly recommend. It's not going to feel good until you get it. It's just one of those things. Once you get this, you're not going to have any issues, right? You can run even a 2. You can run or a 2 link or a 3 link even to help you progress in your leveling. I personally ran with a 3 link Stormbrand, faster casting, and added lightning damage. And yeah, it worked. It worked great. I had 0 issues. And then once you get your Withering Jar, you can drop Spiritual Aid. Now for our passive skill tree, this is exactly how I'm going to level. I'm not interested in doing a bunch of passive skill tree respec crap stuff. Like I just don't care. I'm going to be leveling with SRS, and then as soon as I get Stormbrand, I'll start leveling that. And then as soon as I get Purity, I'll make the full switch. And then run with a 3 link Purity, maybe with some supplemental SRS, most likely is going to be what happens. But from 1 to 12, it's SRS, linked to some juice. Come over here. Obviously, we save this. We're not going to be able to do anything here until Act 4. Go ahead and get our Ravenous Horde set up. Mystic Bulwark. Come all the way down here. Start getting a bunch of our minion mods. Another good thing about this Ascendancy is you don't need to pick up any reservation. Like 0 reservation whatsoever. And that's a really big thing to help us save points. I mean, we're saving 4 or 5 points here, and then, another point here. That's 6 points that we're saving. Come here, get some Ghastly Eye Joel action, and then we start making our way down to all of our block stuff. We pick up some Tireless for extra health and reduced cost of skills. More health, Grave Pact with 250 accuracy, very important. I would really try to take this as early as possible. I might even switch, right? I might even switch this with this. I might end up taking the accuracy first and then coming through here and doing the minions have 50% chance to ignore enemy physical damage reduction. That is another reason why I wanted to go Pure Fizz in Slash Impale, is I think this mastery is really good, and I think it really helps the Fizz side of minion play. Then we come down over here. We get our Constitution, Life Mastery, right? You can probably add Life Mastery here if you really wanted to, and just kind of pick it up early. You can do whatever you like. Shield Mastery is 1% chance to block attack damage per 5% block on shield. It's just nice stuff to get a little bit more attack block. Picked up some combat stamina wheel for some extra regen, which is very much needed. Come down here, we got Barbarism, another Jewel socket. We got Juggernauts. Each of these Jewel sockets, so far, if you can roll them, pretty decent. Anywhere between 90 and 100 to 130k DPS for each one. So not exactly a lot, but not a little either. I think they're going to be really important to have. And then we come down here, get some more armor, get Juggernaut, and we take 30% reduced damage from crit. It's going to help with our one-shots when our ward fails, and then our block fails, and then our immortal call. After that, all that crap. We really want to try to reduce the amount of one-shots that we take. And then we take this lovely, lovely block wheel as the mountain, and we might try to get some block on Jewel somewhere. And then this thing, which is really nice, 1% chance to block spell damage per 5% chance to block to attack damage, really helps us to save points so that we don't have to uber invest in the passive tree for spell block. This mastery essentially does it for us. This mastery is incredible. It really helps to get block online. And then we have, our lovely cluster jewel with disciples, right? So that essentially is giving cooldown reduction to our sentinels, because our sentinels, they don't just auto attack. They also have a slam, right? And we have 6 of them. And then they have a crusade slam. So they're doing a bunch of different things other than just auto attacking. So I wanted to play around with the idea of reducing their cooldown reduction as much as possible, just to see how it feels and how it works. So that's the route I'm going to be going. 2 of the disciples, and mind you, this is like a really basic setup. This whole thing is fully league startable. This is cheap. This probably is going to be somewhat expensive, but I don't think it's going to be insane. Withering Jars, extremely cheap. Ghastly Eye Jewels are very, very, very easy to craft. It just takes time. That's all it is time. Same for the medium. I'm probably going to end up buying the large cluster because they're a little bit harder to hit and you need more time. The double wand, 6, 7 dev, not that expensive. You take one, you take the all spell skill, and it's like a div, maybe a div. They're really not that bad. And you don't even have to do the all spell. You could do Minion and Fizz, right? Because our Purity has a Fizz tag. And nobody uses a Minion in a Fizz skill gem wand. Who does that? Minion and Fire is a thing because of SRS. So there are ways to kind of look around and see where you can save money. You can definitely save some money on your wand by finding one that's Fizz and Minion. I reckon they're going to be pretty cheap because my guess is most people doing the Herald are going to be running Herald of Agony, because Herald of Agony is just capable of just insane amounts of DPS, just ridiculous amounts of DPS at a cost. And it's going to take a while. You need a lot of investment to get there. It's not exactly cheap. So I don't foresee a lot of people really playing Herald of Purity. So I think this build is going to be relatively cheap. And 5.4 mil on Guardian Pinnacle is nothing to scoff at. That is really, really quite good. And we don't really have our full setup here either, right? Eventually we're going to get Intimidate, so they're going to take more damage. And, there's definitely some room to grow here, right? And, there's room to add more cluster jewels, and then we just take this whole wheel off and move towards a new cluster jewel. So there's definitely things that we can do. Now, as far as our Pantheon, obviously stun and block recovery, immunity to freeze, can't be stunned. If you block a stunning hit in the past 2 seconds, absolutely massive. Reduced effective chill, love that, huge fan. Minor God, I mean, really, it's totally up to you. My personal preference, and what I'm going to be doing, is either Shikari, because we're not going to have a ton of Chaos Res until we kind of fill out some of the mods on this gear. I didn't add Chaos because those tend to be very expensive. But that's also why we run an Ami Flask to help get our Chaos Res in the positive. And so what I am probably going to do is Soul of Abrath. Makes us immune to Burning Ground, which I really love that. Humongous fan. Your minions created recently, yes. Endurance charges, yes. And do your minions use frenzy charges? Yes, in fact, they do, which is another thing that we need to go over. And that is our raise specters. So our raise specters, we can only have 2 of them right now, right? Because they are only level 24 right now. But if you can get a level 21, then you can get 3. But a level 21 raise specter is going to be very, very expensive. I guarantee you it's going to be expensive. So what I recommend is Arena Master for the presence, and then Carnage Chieftain for the frenzy charges. I think those are going to be huge for this build. And I have kept the frenzy charges at 1 because the odds of you having 3 frenzy charges at all times is probably not going to be a thing. Like, honestly, probably not going to be a thing. So I'm keeping it at 1, and you see how much damage we get off these frenzies. It's actually crazy. So keep them at 1. I've used a minion skill recently, yes, because we have the trigger that's triggering the flesh offering, which is also triggering all of these minions till 18% damage if you use a minion skill recently. That's going to trigger all those, and those all stack, and everything's looking beautiful. So all in all, the gear is very easy to get. The early game might be a bit slow, but it will start to pick up. I assure you it will start to pick up. My advice to you is that continue to run SRS with Herald of Purity so that when they're summoned, you can just start spamming SRS, and that'll help flesh out your damage until you get to a point where Herald of Purity is just bonking, just everything inside bonking. In Act 8, Act 8 was a joke. Like, nothing survived. And, like, especially on bosses, oh my gosh, the boss damage is so good on these. And clearing the campaign was, honestly, it was a breeze. But it really doesn't start to really come out of its shell. I'd say Act 4 to Act 5 is really when Purity really starts to pick up pace. And so that's my advice to you. Just keep an SRS handy. Get your things summoned, start summoning SRS, and it'll really help to flesh out your early game damage so you can progress quicker through the campaign. And for those newer players that are looking to play this, if you guys have any questions whatsoever, please feel free to hit me up in the comments, and I will answer whatever questions you guys may have. Obviously, these don't have to be in the gloves. They can be in the boots. These don't have to be in the boots. They can be in the gloves. And just kind of have fun with it. Just enjoy it. I do want to preface the fact that I have not played this, and I have not fully tested this like I do all of my other builds that I put out. Every single build that I've ever put out to this channel, I have leveled it multiple times. I've gone through the end game. I've league start tested it. I've end game tested it. I've worked out every kink. But since this is a temp league with brand new ascendancies, I think it's really, really, really important for me to tell you guys that this looks good on POB. But I haven't tested it all the way. Yeah, as far as I've taken this build is to Act 8, and I have nothing but green flags. I think this is going to do incredible in the end game. I think it's more than tanky enough. I think it has more than enough damage, and I think it has room to scale up considerably. And that's kind of hitting all the highlights for me. So while I will say that I am confident in this build, and I have reviewed this, my brother has reviewed this, my buddy's going to look over it as well and see if we don't, make sure we don't catch anything that's just obviously bad. This is what I'm going to be playing. This is my league starter for the temp league. And so you guys, I'll be playing, literally anyone who plays this, I'll be playing right along with you guys. So like I said, if y'all have questions, let me know. I will answer whatever I can for you, and we'll go from there. So I hope you guys enjoyed. I'm sorry that I don't have any footage for this. There's really not. I tried to find some Purity footage. Just like nobody really plays Purity. So this is just a POB video. So I do apologize that it's a little bit boring. But yeah, that's it. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you want to drop a follow, I would love that too. And if not, then I hope you enjoy the rest of your weekend. And I will see you guys in the next video. Take care of yourselves and be good.